Greetings, friends, and welcome back to the Anime Corner, where I talk about my interests in anime and manga. Now, last time I took 42 minutes to explain how much I adored the first season of Attack on Titan, but today I get into all the exciting but somewhat disappointing details of Attack on Titan Season 2. The hype has been so high for this show ever since the first season ended in 2013, and Attack on Titan is once again rising in the rank on all the popularity lists across the internet, now that it is finally airing again. I feel a lot like all that hype and excitement based around Attack on Titan 2 is based more on the fact that anything related to Attack on Titan, is coming out, rather than what actually is coming out in terms of the content. Because after watching the first 4 episodes, I honestly was not very impressed. On the contrary, I felt like there were numerous things about the way these new episodes were being handled that made them less enjoyable to me, and all around just not as good as the first season's episodes. They are, to me, subpar to what makes Attack on Titan great, and like I said, that is due in part to the fact that anything that takes 3.5 years to air better be like the best meal that I've ever eaten, since I've spent so much time waiting for it. I'm going to be a bit more critical on this show than if it were released months after the first season's end, rather than 3 years after the first season's end. There was even a point of time in which, in the waiting period, when I was curled up in a corner in the fetal position, thinking to myself, what if another season of Attack on Titan never comes out? What if the mysteries of this world remain unanswered in animated form? What if we never get the ending of this series that it so greatly needs? What if they force us to go and read the manga instead? Which is exactly what they're trying to do. And you know what I concluded? I came to the conclusion that the first season was so good, so well written, as so well executed, so well orchestrated, and so overall enjoyable, that if a season 2 never came out, I would actually be okay with it. The wait was so long that it forced me into the 5 stages of grief, basically, and I finally accepted my fate. But season 2 is now airing, and I've done a little bit of research into what other people feel about the show and how much they like it in these first few episodes. And I was a little bit surprised based on my own feelings of how I liked it. But the question, of course, that everyone asked was, is it worth the wait? And the answer, among a majority of YouTubers, was, oh, so worth it. It just so worth it. It was like a mantra to them. Now, there are certainly YouTubers who did not have that reaction, one of which was Arcada with Glass Reflection, who, like me, didn't see anything in the first episode to undeniably prove that this second season, if only 12 episodes, might I add, is actually worth the ridiculous time spent waiting for it. So, enough with the platitudes. I ask you to now allow me to expound on all of my own thoughts, not other people's, on each of these episodes in turn. I might make it kind of a series, because I'm just going to be talking about the first episode, with generalizations on the others, but mainly about the first episode, and I may have enough material in my mind to be able to talk on to make, one video for every episode. We'll see how that works. But each of these videos, and will most definitely spoil what happens in them to those who haven't seen the episodes, but I'm going to be doing these reviews several weeks, probably, after the episode that is related to them actually comes out. So you should, if you're actually watching Attack on Titan, be seeing these episodes before I actually review them. And if not, there will be spoilers, just know that. I expect that even if you are spoiled for it, watching a review of something is not the same as actually watching the actual content from something. So I actually do recommend that you see these episodes yourself, and that will actually give you some context for what I'm talking about and be able to actually follow along with me a bit better and make your own opinions on the subject, because these, I'm not saying anything that is completely objective in my mind. So, with that, let me continue on. Now, before I get into the meat of my own criticism of the first episode, I would like to kind of compare the first season's title card, the poster, I should say, and with the second season's. This is the second season's. As you can see, it's it's very much focused on Aaron, but there are all of the secondary cast looming in the background with Reiner here and with on his right and with Ymir on his left, characters that were not important at all to the first season that are suddenly jumping out at you from the poster. In the first season's uh, poster, you can see that it's very much focused basically only on Aaron and the Colossal Titan. It's kind of showing you just the world and that this is kind of an apocalyptic thing going on, but it doesn't show you anything else. It's very minimal, trying to show you only the two characters that matter the most in this story, which, strangely enough, for those who actually have seen the show, in this poster are just Eren Yeager and the Colossal Titan, and we don't even know who the Colossal Titan is yet. Um, but in this one, it's and there's the beautiful shot of Mikasa and the architecture, which I absolutely love. But that's not really what I was getting at here. Attack on Titan season 2 is, as you can see, very much focused on the secondary cast and everything. There's so much in this compared to the first. And they did come out with a poster that was very much like the first poster, but it too was just filled with information. It had the armored Titan on it, had the secondary cast, Mikasa, everyone was there. And that is definitely due to the fact that there was an interview with the direction and production team for Attack on Titan in which they actually stated that they were not going to be going the same direction, the same route with Attack on Titan as they did in the first season anymore. That they would be going with a direction that focused on other characters. And they actually told everyone that in an actual interview in March, the month before the actual the season came out, the second season came out, which I think is a rather odd choice. Once again, they made a whole decision, the whole production team, the whole everyone in it said this is going to be a show about the secondary cast, they said a specific character, but as it is, it's basically all of the focus is spread out almost evenly among all of the secondary cast, which we did not see in the climax of season 1. But how well did they do this? That is the question. So, getting into the actual episode, it starts off with a very short recap of the events of this first season, which skips over just about everything in the middle and just focuses on the Colossal Titan breaking the wall, and humanity being driven back, and the female Titan being defeated by Eren and his Titan at the end of Season 1. And this lasts for only about a minute and a half. But it does give us a pretty decent, but very bare-bones summary of the first season. And I like this recap. I like that it exists, but I kind of wish that it was a bit more substantial, because recaps like these were very commonplace in Season 1 of Attack on Titan. Almost every episode had one, and they did look very nice, and sounded very nice, it set the tone of the show very well. They had a cool kind of three-dimensional, black and white, gritty aesthetic to them, with female narration, calmly giving us some dramatic explanations of the dire situation that humanity found itself in. the fact that this recap is so short, it's almost a blink and you'll miss it type of length recap, shows you that the production team was going for like a very straightforward approach, going straight for the jugular at the beginning of the second season. There won't be any long sequences where characters talk about the events of the first season or anything like that, which can be good. But, you know, if you're a sucker for exposition like me, you'll kind of wish that there was something more substantial going on. So, the episode starts after the recap immediately where the last season left off, particularly with the post-credit scene, the infamous post-credit scene, where a piece of the wall breaks off, revealing the face of a Titan underneath. This here. And when I first saw this post-credit scene, I kind of didn't think anything of it. I literally just thought that it was meant to reveal that the Colossal Titan was beyond the walls, and that was it. I didn't actually think that this face was showing that there are Titans in the walls. I just thought that the handholds that Annie, when she was crawling up the wall, that she made were so deep that it actually broke through the entirety of the depth of the wall, and that this Titan was just on the other side, looking through like, hey guys, you know. And a lot of jokes have been made about that, you know, but I literally just thought that it was the Titan that we've already seen time and time again, kind of reiterating the Colossal Titan. But everyone else, you know, it's speculation for everyone else who paid more attention. Everyone knew immediately that this meant that there were Titans not behind the walls, we already knew that, but within the walls. And this speculation was bandied back and forth like volleyballs on the beach long before Season 2 aired, years before Season 2 aired. So, yes, so it opens with everyone staring at the face of this Titan, and the priest from the Wall Cult, who narrowly escaped death when the church building was shattered from Aaron's Titan punching Annie's body into it, he runs up to Hanji and tells her, "We mustn't allow the Titan to see sunlight," which kind of intimates that he knows something about this Titan, or these Titans. He also doesn't seem surprised at all by the appearance of the Titan behind the wall, and when Hanji asks him what he knows, he remains silent, and she says to herself and to the audience, "Are all of the walls made of Titans?" She then concludes to herself that that must be the case, and the priest remains silent, making a face that she actually hit the mark. Now, this is where I must comment, because to me, this seems like the clumsiest way that this incredible story and mystery about Titans being in the walls, which had been speculated on by fans for 3.5 years, it's the worst way it could have possibly been handled, in my view. Now, in the first season, I stated in my last vlog, in the first season, every mystery was treated kind of with kid gloves, hinted at deftly, and brought slowly into the light, kind of pacing itself so that the ultimate reveal could be pulled off in the most satisfying way possible. It comes kind of to a slow, very slow climax. And then the reveal. They kept the fact that Eren could turn into a Titan well away from the viewers, right up until the moment of his big reveal as the Colossal Titan, and then they kind of went back and explained it, which was very cool. I didn't know that that was going to be where this show went. I thought it was just going to be people killing Titans with the maneuver gear and trying to figure out different ways and kind of looking into the mystery just from a human perspective. I didn't know it was going to be like a big, huge monster mashup type show where the main character turns into a Titan and fights the Titans. That really kind of had a great impact because of the way the mystery was handled. They also kept the fact that other Titans were probably humans too a secret till the moment that the female form Titan appeared, or at least Armin was speculating about the female form Titan, and that the armored Titan was also probably a human in the nape of the neck of the armored Titan. Um, and then they choose to show us a close up of Annie when she's waking up in bed and with her hair down in the exact same style as the female form Titan. So you couldn't really have known that until then. Of course, you knew it before the characters in the show did, but it was a very, I think, satisfying reveal, and it was very clever how they kept all of that a secret for so long. They even kept the plot to capture her a secret from the audience until they actually do it, until Armin, Mikasa, and Eren spring it on her in the climax of the show. With all of that in season one, the way which they chose to reveal that the walls are actually made out of Titans, a massive realization, seemed to me more like an afterthought than a well-paced mystery reveal. Everyone has been thinking, a face behind the wall, what does it mean? Is it behind it? Is it within it? Are Titans, are the walls made of Titans? They're talking about it, you know? And then within like 2 lines of dialogue in one of the first scenes of season 2, the show actually tells us, yep, you got it. The walls are all Titans. I mean, what? They could have stretched out this reveal justifiably until the end of the episode or something. You know, multiple episodes in, they could have kept this a secret. Uh, it doesn't have to mean that all the walls are Titans if one Titan shows up within one wall. They could have had that realization dawn on Eren or Mikasa or someone rather than Hanji, who is definitely, I mean, she's very well beloved, but she is part of the secondary cast. And at least if Eren realized it, it would have kind of hit closer to home for all those watching. But anything but revealing this huge mystery in just 2 lines of dialogue would have been better. So, that's my first problem with episode 1. My second is this. Right after this huge reveal is done within about 5 minutes of the recap and of the intro, which is a good intro, very nice music. It's very low volume, though, in comparison to the original and to the second season's, I mean, the second half of the first season's song. The third soundtrack, the third intro sequence, which is the second season's intro, is very low volume and has a very low excitement level. I'll just say that about it. It's a good song, but it's very low volume, and that was very like apparent to me when I saw it. But this is my real gripe about this episode. Right after this huge reveal, the show does this thing where instead of proceeding ahead along the plot lines that they're giving to us, they choose to rewind the tape, quite literally. It even has a bunch of VCR effects on screen there, like film clips of previous scenes, blurred and spotted like tape, and shows, a bunch of different things that happened. It switches, reverts to a plot thread taking place 12 hours ago, south of Wall Sina. And the events of season 1 were all happening within Wall Sina. 12 hours before the plan to capture Annie even began, and starts to tell us of what happened to Eren's comrades in the 104th Scout Squadron. So instead of keeping us up to speed about what is happening presently with the characters we care about, it takes us back in time to what might as well be a flashback of the secondary cast. I wouldn't have such a problem with this if it were just a several-minute flashback, or even a whole episode of flashbacks, but the whole of the first 5 episodes are telling us about things that have taken place not only to the secondary cast, but in the past, and have nothing to do with the main plot we've been watching up till now. So that's the second problem. At about the 9-minute mark, it starts showing us what Connie, Sasha, Reiner, and Berthold, and the rest were up to back then. when Aaron was fighting Annie, which is basically nothing at first. They're talking about how they want to go back to their village. They're talking about how they're not really feeling trusted with their weapons anymore, that were taken away because Aaron turns out to be a Titan and Annie turned out to be a Titan. So they take their gear away from them, and all this is meant to be showing us just how bored they are, how they're not being allowed to do what they want to do. They're not where they want to be. They're just in some barracks out in the boonies beyond Walsina. And I don't blame them for being bored. It's only been 10 minutes into this show, and I too was already bored watching it. Something about the direction or something seems to be dragging the pacing of this episode down, and I don't like it. My whole first video on Attack on Titan was mainly about how fast-paced the first season was, and Attack on Titan in general, and that the speed and thrills never let up, and it's all about the speed and the thrills, all the way through the end. Well, the first episode of Season 2 is nothing but a full stop, giving us several meaningless dialogue scenes, which, based on my description of what makes dialogue exciting or boring, are all mostly boring. There's this scene where the lieutenant is being spoken to by one of his subservient guys. I can't remember the names right now, but he's being spoken to about the fact that there's a Titan within the wall, and the lieutenant is just saying, yes, there were some people who knew and some people who didn't know that the walls were all Titans. And firstly, I'm like, well, how did you know this? Like, how do you know so soon after the fact that the wall is actually made out of all Titans? Do you just believe, based on what Hanji says, that all of the walls are Titans? Couldn't you at least look? I mean, it's a pretty big leap of logic to make, to say that because one section of the wall, peeled off and reveals a Titan, all of the walls are now Titans? It's a pretty big leap in logic, but the show just tells us right off the bat that that's what's happening. And there's this scene that's just reiterating that fact by the lieutenant, who isn't even on scene. They're walking down one of the corridors, the colonnades of the inner walls, and I'm like, why did they need to show him? Why did they need to show these guys? They're not the main cast. But anyway, perhaps that's just because the show is no longer focusing on what I wanted it to be focusing on, which are the main characters. Some people may not find this to be that boring, but just because they haven't shown up yet, I'm like wondering, like, what's going on? Why aren't they being shown? Is something wrong with them? Show them to us. That exactly is what I'd been waiting for since the beginning of the show, the reveal of Eren and Mikasa and Armin and how they're doing after this massive battle. But they refrained from even showing any of the main characters, instead of opting for a 5-episode arc that has nothing to do with them. If the first season taught me anything, it was to care about the 3 main characters. And they're not even present in the first tone-setting episode of Season 2, until about, 15 minutes into the running time. 15 minutes out of a 24-minute episode. Of course, the last 2 of which are outro and preview for the next episode. So, when they do show us the main cast, I'm expecting some development. I'm expecting conversations about what just happened. I'm expecting them to ask about each other's health, perhaps a little development of Mikasa's romance with Eren. Please? You know, anything of that would have been more interesting than whatever has been happening beyond the wall of Sina 12 hours ago. But no, we don't get any of that. Instead, we get a two-minute scene of Eren remembering his mother in a flashback. Him giving Mikasa her scarf back after it fell on the ground. Still not realizing her feelings towards him, and Armin yelling at them that the Titans are coming. And that's a 2-minute scene in the hospital. 2 minutes. I actually rewatched the episode to make sure that it wasn't just me imagining things, that it wasn't actually that short, and maybe it just felt that short and was longer, but it was actually 2 minutes long. 2 out of the 22 viable minutes, which could have been all focused on them, but wasn't. And that's my main beef with the first 5 episodes in general. Anything that I say negative about the show will mainly be because of that. Now, I admit that what happens in this sort of side plot secondary arc is definitely interesting as relates to the world of Attack on Titan and the mythos of the show, but to be honest, the events of these episodes seem to be written more like OVAs, or extra episodes than actual, like, season episodes of Attack on Titan. The OVAs that were included in the DVDs and Blu-rays dealt with multiple story arcs that were just like this one. They focus on secondary characters, Levi's ascension to glory, a certain type of glory, of course, within the Survey Corps, and where he came from, and then Hanji and how she tried to capture a Titan and found the notebook of a girl who encountered a Titan who spoke in human speech. They focus on secondary characters, and they give us some interesting tidbits about the world, more info about the Titans, but that's all, like, OVA. I expected that out of the OVAs. And of course, they had some comedic bits about Sasha and Jean. But yeah, these episodes focusing on secondary characters all feel like kind of unnecessary. Like, they're unnecessary to the season. But anyway, continuing on. That's just me again, my gripes. This is what this video is about, basically. My gripes with Season 2. So, the rest of the episode shows the terrifying Beast Titan, who is legitimately creepy looking, using strategy to attack Mike. And then there's that kind of mystery of how there are Titans beyond the walls. When Eren just plugged up the wall, of Rose, he plugged up the wall, but there are now Titans inside the wall who are coming at Walsina. So how did they get there? That's a new mystery. And then we get to see confirmed that the Beast Titan can indeed speak intelligently, and like a professor would, nonetheless. Now, I don't have a problem with any of this. It's all well animated and quite interesting, but all of this could have been addressed later in a shortened flashback, when revealed to Eren or Mikasa or something. That would have saved time, and made me more interested and invested in what was happening. Instead, we get these protracted, long episodes. I mean, they feel long. They're all the same length, but they feel long, that don't have the strong weight of emotion that Season 1 did. Because, like I said, it's not focusing on the main characters, like Season 1 did. At the same time, though, I do feel like they're just kind of stretching out this arc in order to stall for time. Because while it is a bummer that none of the main characters appear in the action, the events of the first 2 episodes did not need to feel as boring as they do to me. They have some good stuff in them. They have really good animation. I love the animation in this new season. It's taken up a notch from the last. The first season didn't look bad. It didn't look bad by any, leap of the imagination. Some people do make that leap and think that it looks bad, but I disagree completely. But this season even improves on that past greatness, and just brings it to a whole nother level. There are just these scenes of them riding along on horseback that are just beautiful. Of course, even in those scenes, they do this thing where the horses are suddenly transformed into 3D CGI horses. And I have no idea why they did this. The whole, it's still anime. This whole season is still anime. It's still kind of jerky. And to have the horses be just as jerky as them makes sense. So why would you change the animation on the horses? But they did, and the horses are extremely fluid, but then when it cuts back to the characters, it goes back to anime style where everything is pretty rigid, because it's animation, not CGI. So that's really actually brought me out of being engaged, and made me question, like, why did they do that, rather than just keep me in the storyline? But nevertheless, Um, yeah, I feel like also they could have cut down on some of these panning shots that show just, like Mike standing on a house and it's panning out on the Titans for like 3 or 4 seconds. They could have just cut that out and just shown him looking at them like they do later, and showing how many are there. And I think if they did that, they might have been able to fit the events of both episode 1 and 2 into one, and it would have made it more exciting, more fast paced, just like the first season. It just always kind of felt like something was off when watching this episode, with the pacing or directing or something. Because in all 5 episodes, even subsequent episodes, there seemed to be a lot of dead space, dead air, hanging around that could have been cut, but it's all there, just stretching out the running time of these episodes, dragging down what could have been more exciting. Now that's just kind of a feeling or a gut response in me while I watched it, and it's difficult to really nail it down or to say why I felt like it. But maybe you had the same opinion. Please leave in the comments if you did, because I don't want to be crazy. My one friend and I watched it together, and he had the same experience. It was very odd that there were all these weird choices being made in the first episode of season 2, which should be making the audience feel safe in that will be just as good, if not better, than the first season. Um, so yeah, let me know in the comments if you have these gripes too. But like the way that the Titans are depicted is also rather odd when compared to the first season, and I can't really say with specificity exactly why. But now the Titans are very weird looking. The Titans were always kind of weird. I give them that. They're meant to be disturbingly human-like, but also beastly, monstrous, and in many ways kind of retarded looking, so as to make them seem completely inhuman, and therefore detestable. And there were many instances in season 1 when they moved or acted rather strangely and almost comically. But no matter their shape or their actions, they always were more menacing, monstrous, serious threats than they were comical. They were always also kind of kept in the shadows in season 1. Their massive eyes or their teeth, their inhuman smiles would kind of show out of the shadows of their faces, making them more frightening. They were always a serious threat, not a threat that also looked comedic. In this season, they're displayed more like characters in a Punch and Judy show, like puppets, smacking each other, running into each other, with their stupidity and childlikeness like ramped up to 100. It also focuses on some Titans that are even more deformed than usual. Take this fellow, for instance. The Titans have always been deformed looking, especially the smaller ones, but never to this extent. When you see him from the front, his eyeballs are just, going in 2 totally different directions. They're bulging out of his sockets. Why is his head so small at the top and so huge at the bottom? It makes no sense. How does he even see anything? Another example, which is seen for a split second in the intro, is a group of Titans suddenly deciding to rush the group of soldiers running away from their barracks beyond Walsina. One of them, this guy in the front, suddenly spins his head 360 degrees, jumps into the air, and does a perfect pirouette before sprinting forward with his head and arms trailing behind him, like you see here. We've seen the abnormals act in crazy ways before, but never in ways that were this ridiculous. This has got to be the most extreme example of what I would call comedicizing the Titans, making them funny more rather than frightening. But this type of thing happens a lot more this season than last season. And all of this is just in the first episode. Another thing is the use of still shots of the Titans during the show. Last time, the Titans were always shown in motion. This time, almost whenever Titans are seen, a still image of the scene of the Titans is shown with all of them in different ridiculous positions for a matter of seconds. Why do they do this? It's beyond me. I would say that its intent is to minimize the amount of motion, to save time and money in the animating process. But they have such incredibly beautiful animation for things like riding horses in the sunset that I can't believe they would skimp on animating the Titans themselves. That's something that's a bit more important than some late afternoon horseback riding. Now, all the things that I just mentioned are definitely kind of nitpicking little annoyances that do, when put all together, equate to a bunch of random directing decisions that cause me to be quite frustrated by them. And I could handle these things if the plot itself were focused on the main characters. But as it is, it just feels to me like I'm watching a bunch of OVA episodes which have little to do with the actual storyline. Yeah. Now, once again, the show tells you about the secondary characters. Sasha and Connie, in particular, are particularly focused on as being people who have villages that are in the direction from which the new Titans are coming. And for some reason, everyone is like, how can there be Titans within the walls? Where did they come from? The wall must be breached. Where there's no evidence of that. And there's tons of evidence going around, everyone knows it, that both Annie and Aaron, people who are in the Survey Corps, were both turned out to be Titans. So why don't they just immediately assume that these are humans? I mean, I guess they're running off of the presuppositions that they already had before Aaron or Annie showed up, that if Titans show up beyond the walls, then the wall is breached. But yeah, they all react as if, especially Reiner, reacts as if it's not even possible that these people could be turning into Titans, that these Titans were people that were in, the vicinity between Wall Rose and Wall Cena, who were living there and suddenly turned into Titans because they were Titans all along. So, yeah, that's kind of a weird thing. Why would they not just immediately make that supposition? They're making suppositions about different things. Armin already made that supposition. But anyway, they don't. And so Sasha and Connie, the next episode seems to be focused more on them and their struggles, because they're going out with the rest of the 104th to notify villages between where they are and where the Titans are that the Titans are coming, and to evacuate before they get there. The one question is, how do they have horses enough to get everyone in the city out, or in the village out, in the time that it takes the Titans to get there? I don't know, but yeah. So that's how this first episode felt to me. It grated on me a lot, and while I have a lot negative to say about this episode, I will say that the production values are beautiful. It's a wonderfully crafted show. The production is still not bad, per se. It's just choosing to do things that make it weird when compared to the first season, and things that make it kind of boring to those who are expecting a more lively, fast-paced show, like the first season was. So yes, that was all of my thoughts on Season 2. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, subscribe, and do all the things that are expected of you as a YouTuber and patron. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. God bless.